Your Partner in Success Radio is a free business podcast with host Denise Griffitts. It's all about great stories, conversation, and context to help you move your business and life forward with actionable tips and advice from her guest experts. To listen and subscribe, just find us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you consume your podcasts.
Good morning and welcome to Your Partner in Success Radio. I am your host, Denise Griffitts, and today's guest is Rick Yvanovich. Now, he is a veteran entrepreneur, respected business coach, and the author of Business as Unusual. I love this title. Business as Unusual, How to Thrive in the New Renaissance. I never can pronounce that word, Renaissance. That book is on my desk as we speak, and across 4 decades in accounting, IT, and oil and gas, Rick built a multi-million-dollar consultancy that now serves clients in 80 countries, from Fortune 500 leaders to luxury hotel groups. And broadcasting from Switzerland, he combines profit-driven strategy with a mentor's mindset. And that's all backed by an impressive roster of certifications and board rules. So get ready to learn how to navigate volatility, seize emerging opportunities, and cultivate teams that excel in this new renaissance of constant change. Here's what I would advise. Grab your notebook. Rick's practical wisdom and transformative insights are about to spark fresh ideas for your own success journey. Good morning, Rick, and welcome to Your Partner in Success Radio. And thank you for sending me your book. It's on my desk.
Oh, thank you, Denise, and really, thanks for having me on your podcast. Now, before we start, I like to share a core belief that I hold rather dear to myself. We all have the potential to be architects of change. In today's era, which is really defined by constant transformation, our task is not just to keep up, but to actively shape the path forward. From stacking shelves and learning the ropes of people management as a trainee in a UK supermarket, to then immersing myself in the more precise world of accounting and later navigating the constantly evolving landscapes of technology and humans, my own story demonstrates the power of transformation and continuous learning and the significant impact each and every one of us can make. Every day, our actions, whether they're big or small, they shape our future. And as we discuss things today, Denise, I want everyone listening to remember this. You are your brand, and every decision that you make is part of the unique story you're crafting for yourself. How you react, how you adapt, and how you innovate in the face of change will define your story and your legacy. This belief, inspiring each of us to aim for what I call balanced fulfillment, is the cornerstone of my work. It is now my life purpose. So as we dive into our conversation today, Denise, let us not all just think about adapting to change, but about how we can define it. After all, when we each embrace our unique qualities and strive for that personal growth, we're not just participants, but catalysts in our ever-changing business as unusual world. So let's get started, Denise.
I love that. I actually had, I always write out some questions to ask my guest, and the very first one was, you call yourself an architect of change. I didn't even need to ask you. You just jumped right in and answered a question before you even knew I had it. So thank you.
You are most welcome.
I wanted to ask you this is an important book. I mean, I was sharing with you in the virtual green room that I've read it 2.5, almost 3 times. And there's a reason I do that for my authors. One is I need to look at it and determine what we're going to be talking about on the show. The second thing is I need to read it and write a review for it. The third thing is I need to read it the weekend before you come on my show so it's fresh in my mind. And it's fat. I've got sticky notes all over it. Seriously. So I am ready. So tell us why you wrote this book and why it's so important for people to understand that business as unusual can help you thrive?
So why did I write the book?
Yeah,
That's a good question. I think I've had on my, you can call it my bucket list or a life goal, that I've always wanted to write a book. And I got round to it during the COVID pandemic. I mean, what else are you going to do if you're locked up at home and you can't leave your apartment?
right. A lot of people
Uh,
wrote books during that time, a lot. And they're
yeah,
showing up here now. So thank you.
and yes, I was just another one. Um, and really, I guess, at the time I was living in Vietnam, where I've pretty much been for the last 35 years. And we had some very, very harsh lockdowns, which did help the country contain the pandemic. But anyway, as we were confined to our apartments and couldn't go into the physical office, I thought, what else am I going to do? And I thought I might as well start writing a book. And so it ended up being a massive mind dump of a lot of what I know. And the title, The Business as Unusual, it also happened, as I was writing it, because that was not the title. I didn't know what the title was. Um, but during the pandemic, the people I used to speak to, my normal business networks of business leaders, too many of them were saying, when this is over and we get back to business as usual. And that used to really, really wind me up because we're not going to go back to normal. There was no
No,
going back to usual. And that's
none of
where
that made
the,
any sense to me. My eyebrows used to hit my hairline. I looked like I had a
yeah.
bad facelift, like I was permanently surprised because it made no sense then. It makes no sense now.
And so that's really where the title came, Business as Unusual. And the How to Thrive in the New Renaissance was a really reframing of, well, how do you survive all this unusual stuff that's happening? So I wrote that. It actually came out literally 2 years ago. And yeah, it's still happening, isn't it? Because business is still unusual.
As it always should be. I don't understand why people say, well, it's not what it used to be. Good. It doesn't need to be what it used to be. If it's if you stay stuck in a rut, you're stuck in a rut. You should be looking forward and, you know, balancing what happened then, what's happening now, and where you're going to go. Okay, I'm off my rant. You talk now.
No,
Your turn.
absolutely. I think it's all about, people don't like change. Um, we just don't like change. We get into our habits, we do the same thing. And it's, I actually talked about it in the book. I mean, one of the analogies I used is prior to the pandemic, we seem to be happy, commuting that hour or whatever into work, going into that office, sitting in that little cube, jumping on our little hamster wheel, as it were, and going nowhere. But it paid the mortgage, and that's what we do, right? That's what work is. The only problem was with a pandemic, it threw away the hamster wheel, it threw away the cube, and in some cases it threw away the office as well. And now, because the pandemic's been over many years, um, people are still trying to decide where they should be, what they want to do. Because with that hamster wheel, as it were, thrown away, and that cube thrown away, and even the office thrown away, um, for the years that we were in this sort of flip flop. We go back to the office, don't go back to the office. You're allowed to leave your home, you're not allowed to leave your home. And all the restrictions that many of us faced. Companies are still trying to decide or what to do, because the way people work is now different because we experienced something different during the
Right.
pandemic.
Right.
And that forced change has made us sort of pause and say, hmm, hmm, do I actually prefer working from home like I did during the pandemic? Or do I actually want to go back to the office? And it doesn't really matter which one you want, um, because, we all can choose what we want and what fits us. But the thing is that if the company wants you to come back to the office and you don't, well, that's a wrong fit, isn't it? There's something wrong there. Or if the company doesn't want you to come back to the office and you do want to come back, that's also a wrong fit. And that's what I believe that has been driving this, the great resignation, the great reshuffle, the great whatever people want to call it, all this moving around, and this flip flop. You must come back to the office, or you can't come back to the office, or do something in between. And on top of that is, I think, the whole reason why people are working. Their reasons before the pandemic to the reasons now have changed, because maybe during the pandemic, again, it's caused us to say, you know, do I really want to go back to what I was doing? And in a lot of cases, I guess the answer was no.
No,
Um,
right.
and
And you
so
said
there's all this
something,
confusion. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, you said something earlier that I wrote down. It's we are working differently. Listen, I have always worked from home. My office is in my home. I don't play well with others. I'm a highly committed introvert. You do not want me in your office. I run with scissors, and if you want coffee, you can get it your own damn self. I'm not going to do it. So I have to be off by myself working. But I figured out, I think a lot of people figured this out kind of at the same time, that we have different working systems, internal systems. For instance, around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm done. I mean, I'm not done for the day, but I need to stop because my brain has quit working. I'm exhausted. I need to go outside, mow the lawn, do something. And I can come back later on that night. I'm refreshed. My creativity is back. But if you were to put me in a 9 to 5, oh my God, I just, I cringe just thinking about it. My system, my internal system doesn't permit that. And I think a lot of people found that they work better when they're in high creativity. It may be 1 o'clock in the morning, it may be 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but they're going to get the bulk of their work done when they're feeling on point. And I think we're seeing a lot of that deliberation, like, I don't want to go back there. I work best when nobody is, clicking their change in their pocket behind my desk and watching over me. I'm very creative. I'm very good at what I do. And I'm going to bring a lot of value to the company that hires me. I think we're seeing that. Am I wrong?
Yes and no. All kudos to you for understanding yourself. I mean, you understand yourself. You know
Oh,
what
yeah.
works for you, which is good, because since you know what works for you and what turns you on and what turns you off, okay, you've created a working style and an environment that really fits well. Pity the people who don't really know what is
Yeah.
turning them on and off. What
Right.
is really aggravating them, when they're in the office? What is winding them up? Or if they're working from home, what is really winding them up? If people are not even cognizant of that, they don't even know what's pushing all their buttons. Okay. They don't necessarily even know what their sweet spot is and the best way they should be working. And that's where I think the biggest issue is because companies aren't necessarily, or traditionally, companies aren't geared up for that. You know, most companies, I'd still say, are geared up for you work in the office, 9 to 5 or whatever the hours are, Monday to Friday. It's been like that for decades. Okay. Now, for a large organization, to suddenly change their operating system and accommodate people who don't want to work like that, that's a huge undertaking. It really is. Now,
Well, and
conversely,
I would guess, I
go
have
go
to ask
ahead.
a quick question or I'll
Yeah,
forget
yeah.
about it. When you're trying to kind of rework how you're working with your employees, doesn't that mean that, and I know you said it's a huge job and I can imagine, but doesn't that mean you need to find out how they work best and either accommodate them or not, depending on how your business is structured?
Yes, it's that and more. So yes, we need to find out what employees want. We also have to find out what we would want as the business owner, okay, or the business leadership. That's two things. And the third thing is like, based on both of those, what are we actually going to choose to do? Because at the end of the day, it may not be practical. It may not even be possible to accommodate the wishes of absolutely everybody.
That's actually what I was trying to say and said it poorly. So thank you for for following along and with my fevered brain here. You say in your book the buck stops with you. So my
Yeah.
question is, how do you coach leaders to balance ultimate accountability while empowering their teams? That's a big issue. I mean, this is an issue across the board. So how do you coach leaders?
Okay. Well, when it goes back to the buck stops with you, it is all about accountability, and linked to that is the fact that whatever you do as the business leader, or whatever you do, even if you're not the business leader, you're the employee, it's a choice. You know, everything we do is a choice. So, for example, the company may say, all right, you must return to the office. We do not, the company may not support virtual working. You cannot work from home. You turn up, you spend all your office hours in the office, just like you used to do before the pandemic. Now, as an employee of that company, you have a decision to make. The buck stops with you. You either accept it and do it and stop complaining about it, just embrace it, or you vote with your feet and you quit. That's what I mean by the buck stops with you. So again, as the business leader, if we come down with that kind of decision, hey, you have to work in the office, and if you don't want to do that, you're going to have to leave. Um, we have to accept that that's a decision that we've made as part of leadership, and we have to accept all the consequences that go with it, as in there are going to be some unhappy people. There may be some super unhappy people.
Right.
If it
And we
is
hear about them all over the internet.
absolutely, if it's handled badly by the organization, oh yeah, then you might have lawyers involved because you said something, you did things in the wrong way. Um, so yeah, we're accountable for doing that. But at the end of the day, we have to step back from that, and we have to um, make sure everybody understands why we are doing what we're doing. Okay, that what is the real purpose of it, and it may require some very difficult decisions. I mean, what if you really want everybody to work in the office as before, but we realize that some of our best people really don't like that, and they are most likely to disengage and quit. you know, are we willing to accept that risk or that reality when it actually happens?
See, that's
Um,
my real question because there are people like me.
mhm,
I work whenever I feel like working, to be honest.
mhm,
I work when my creativity is high. I work when I've got something to say or do. But if I need a break at 2 p.m., I take that break because I find that after a while, I'm just looking at pieces of code that are swimming in front of my eyes. It's not
mhm,
working. I'm exhausted. But I recognized during the pandemic, I was watching a lot of leaders, a lot of businesses really struggling with how to work with people who used to be, I mean, just high, high sustained, high performance, and then all of a sudden they weren't. And the opposite was also true. People who did not really do well off on their own were not going to do well with this at all, and they had to quit or be fired. They needed that water cooler attitude, I guess. They needed to be around other people. Not everybody does. I don't know this for a fact, but it seems to me that we're still struggling with this, and we will be for quite a long while.
Yeah, I believe so as well. Some organizations I feel are still flip-flopping or are not making a definitive
Mhm.
decision.
Right.
If
And
they
that's
have,
confusing. It's
yes,
confusing
that's
for everybody.
confusing.
Do I go to work? Do I not go to work? Do I
Yeah,
find another job? To heck with all this. It's very confusing.
yeah. So there's a lack of clarity,
Yeah.
and there's going to be a lack of clarity there if the intent of the organization is not made clear. Okay. Now, if the leadership is unclear themselves, all right, then just say so. Be honest about it, rather than destroy any trust that employees may have with leadership by leadership flip-flopping and changing their minds without giving good reason. Um, I look at it another point of view is, as I said, we're trying to accommodate everybody's wishes. We can't keep everybody happy all the time.
No, you can't.
Another way of looking at it is if we step out of it and saying, hey, let's pretend we were starting our organization from scratch again. Would we hire these people? And
Good point.
the answer
No,
has to be no, not in all
no.
cases. Because
Right.
if you want 100% in the office environment, and we know that, taking you as an example, Denise, you're the wrong person to hire for that.
Oh, no, no, no. You
A
don't want me in there. Nope, nope. I
so
won't
two
go.
things. Number one, you would never have applied for the job in the first place,
No,
knowing it's
I would not.
100% there. Okay,
Right.
so why are we trying to accommodate, and someone like you, or not even trying to accommodate you and force you to come in and do that on the, it just doesn't make sense to me. So I think people are trying to be, I don't know, fair to each other, or hey, they're one of our employees, we have to look after them. That's being fair. I said, well, it's not really being fair because you can't treat everybody the same, you know. Unless it's absolutely clear you want everybody to be in the office, you need to allow people to exit because that's not what they want. Okay. And if it's not what they want, they're not going to perform very well. And everybody is a lose-lose situation.
Yeah, they're
Um,
going to be very resentful. I would be. Well, first of all,
yeah.
I wouldn't show up, but if I were silly enough to
Mm,
show up, I would be deeply resentful. And that's what you get. And as anything else, happiness is, when people are happy, everybody around them's happy. When they're miserable, that spreads itself too. And,
mm,
while we're talking about this, hybrid, remote, freelance work, it's changing fast. It has been since
mm.
COVID. So what unconventional rather, practices are already delivering, excuse me, measurable results to the forward-thinking firms that you're working with?
Well, I suppose the organizations I get exposed to are international organizations. So they're in multiple time zones. Their people are in multiple time zones. And I'd say that those organizations are probably in a better position to, weather all of this unusual behavior that's going on because they're used to taking calls and doing work at hours to suit where the other people are. Okay, so to extend that further is, to start off with, if you're used to or have experienced working at, shall we say, odd times, because the people you need to work with are all over the globe, then it's not much of a further step to enable individuals to work in their own time because you're already doing it. Now, firstly, it was determined by, hey, where are the offices in the company, which may be in different countries. Um, it's not much of a step to start embracing a fully hybrid type of working where does it really matter where the people are as long as the work gets done? I know I am completely biased because that's the way that I think, because it's not a matter of people turning up. It's a matter of the work needs to get done. Okay.
Exactly.
And if the person wants to do that at 3 o'clock in the morning because that's where they want to do it, fine. If they want to do it sitting on a beach in Bali, fine. If they want to do it, sitting in a coffee shop in New York, fine. It really doesn't matter, does it?
It doesn't,
Um,
as long as the work is done and it's
yeah.
properly done.
Yeah, and it's done properly. Now, the challenge is okay, if it's not individual work and you have to work and collaborate with other people, then the challenge is where are those people?
Hmm. I've
Because if
seen
you
that
have
happen too.
if you had that team of five and they go, yeah, one of them does want to sit on a beach in Bali, another one wants to sit on a beach in the Mediterranean, another one wants to sit in New York, and the other one in London. Okay, fine. If that's how it is, you're going to have to still work it out between the lot of you how you're going to work. Yeah. And so there's always going to be a bit of give and take, isn't there?
Well, yes, and there should be because here's my thinking, and I'm in my head, I'm picturing these different people, I think in pictures, and I can see them, beach here, New York. Oh, what are you doing in that coffee shop? You ought to know better. Those people, that's bad coffee. Get out of there. But here's the thing. Once you start working with the people on your team and you figure out what your time zones are, what works best for you, then you're already a step ahead, aren't you? Because now you're actually communicating with one another. You're learning how they operate, what they like, what they don't like. And you can move forward quicker, I would think, by having these conversations and creating this work as unusual way of doing things.
Yeah, I agree. It's sort of like delegating down to that group of people how to collaborate because they've got to produce the outcome. Now, if it doesn't work, well, those people are going to have to collaborate with other people or join other groups or move around to make it work. So I don't believe um, there is a formula yet because there hasn't been enough experience of all of this way of working for formulas to sort of drop out. I mean, apart from, yes, you can work virtually, that's about as far as people have got. But to find out what's the optimal mix for hybrid, don't know.
Right.
Um,
Nobody
and
does.
yeah, and should we allow, let's say, there are hundreds or thousands of people in the company, should we allow all the people to form their own groups and regroup and whatever, so they find the right teams and collaboration that works to get the work done? Or does it really need someone make a decision, say, no, we're going to do it this way?
I have a headache just thinking about all of this. And outside of the office, what personal routines or mindsets can help you stay adaptable? Because we are in an era of constant upheaval. So, what can professionals do to say, well, nobody's made a decision, or this decision was made and I don't like it? What kind of mindset do you suggest people kind of embrace so they're not thrown off balance all the time, every day?
It's important that people set boundaries. Um, the and set clarity. You know, Clarity is really driven by expectations. and expectations are, are within the framework of what are our boundaries. So, if the organization is not being clear on how you should be working, as in, let's say it's hybrid, then within a team or within a department, we should be setting our own boundaries. Say, okay, fine, let's make it 2 days a week in the office. And if no one's making a decision, make a decision. So at least there's clarity. This is what we're doing. And if someone doesn't like it, tell us and we'll change it. But to have nothing, it means that, with that lack of clarity, anything that we do, as far as how often we should be in the office, is likely to be wrong because there's no expectation set. So we must set that expectation, make other people aware of it, and stick to it until someone tells us otherwise.
Absolutely. And I was scribbling while you were talking. So my next question is, how has clarifying your own life purpose influenced business decisions? Are you going to go? Are you going to stay? And how can listeners uncover theirs? Because when we are in constant upheavals, turn off the news, y'all. Turn it off. Just don't even turn it
Mm.
on right now.
Mm.
Go inside and figure out what it is that you're doing. But how can listeners uncover their own life purpose and how they're
Oh.
going to be influenced? Did that even make sense? Because I was scribbling it when I wrote it.
Yeah, I mean, you're touching on life purpose there, and unfortunately, or maybe you asked it, is because I wrote about it in a book.
I know. That might
It's
be why
it
I asked it.
it's in the first chapter. So it's sort of walking through. Not everybody has a life purpose. I keep asking people that question, and I speak a lot or I try to speak a lot at universities, because I want to speak to people, before they've entered the formal workforce and started on that career ladder. Although ladder, I think that should be thrown away anyway, but that's another story. Um, uh, Few of them have got a real life purpose apart from I want to graduate.
Right. Or I want to get married, or I want to get divorced, or I want a new car, that kind of thing. Those
Yeah,
are
yeah,
not
yeah.
life
So
purposes.
yeah, so
Those are
some
wants.
materialist. Yeah, they're materialistic things. So it really all starts with values. What are your values? And I mentioned before about setting boundaries, because again, when I speak to undergrads, it's one of the examples that I give, in the how many of them have felt uncomfortable or didn't like it on the way that they're being treated by their friends or the school itself. And when I push back and I says, what do you think is the cause of that? Okay. It's usually because it's pushed up against a boundary of one of their own values that they didn't even know that they had. Okay.
Oh, okay. Keep going.
So I'll give a very simplistic example. There may be a person who um, who is getting upset, on the project because they've been put in a group of other people to do a school project, and the person is getting upset because, for example, they agreed what should be done, and then one of the people didn't do it, or they agreed that they should turn up on a Tuesday at whatever time, at 5 o'clock, and sit for an hour and work out stuff in the project, and a person is late nearly all the time. Okay, so there are two different things there. One of them was a commitment made and then broken, and the other, and actually they're both commitments made and broken. So for that person who's getting upset by that, it's they have a value possibly around integrity, as in, like, well, you agreed to do something
Right.
and
And
then
disrespect.
you didn't
Those
do
are both
it.
very
Yeah.
disrespectful.
So for that person who it's important to them and they would never do that to someone else, when it's done to them, they feel bad about it, or they might even get angry about it. And so that could be a value that is very important to that individual. Now, since none of us are mind readers, how does that one person not turning up or turning up late, how do they know it impacts this individual so much? So unless that value is shared, unless that is explained, then they don't even know that they're crossing over that boundary. Now, maybe with that expectation reset and say, hey, you know, uh, meeting your commitments after you've agreed to something is very, very important to me, and I get very upset if you fail to follow through, like turn up on time. And that other person has a choice to make. They either adjust themselves, okay, and fit into this model, as it were, and not turn up late, or they choose to continue to be, as you say, disrespectful.
Listen, showing up late for me is don't do it. It really bugs me. And the sad thing about that is when I was younger and stupider, I was late all the time. I was arrogant enough to think that I was just important enough that people would wait, and the idiots did. So I never learned my lesson until a lot
Mm,
later in life. But don't disrespect people. And honestly, and I love what you just said, if something is bothering you and it's just not going to work within your certain set of parameters at that time, say so. Be
mm,
kind. You don't need to be ugly about it, but you need to set out your boundaries and explain why it's important. And if they choose to just keep disregarding you, then you go do something different. Cut them off your Christmas card list. I don't know what to
mm,
do, but you don't need to talk. I had a business coach many, many years ago, and she taught me something that was so important because I was complaining bitterly about the same thing every time we talked. And she just listened very quietly. And finally she said, Denise, and I said, yes, ma'am, because she kind of scared me. She said, what are you tolerating? And that
ex-
changed everything for me. Everything.
ex- exactly. So when we're saying, putting a boundary out there, how hard is that boundary? Is it a soft boundary in that you allow people to turn up late all the time and you tolerate it? Or are you an absolute stickler for it and saying, no, I will wait X minutes, and if not, I will start without them, or I will just leave, you know?
5 minutes.
Um,
That's all you get with me. 5 minutes.
okay, so there you go. So that's a very, very hard boundary. But
It
again,
is.
in order to collaborate with each other, we need to be aware what our boundaries are. So, um, you know, uh, if it's something very, very important and it's something you're beginning to experience already, you can say so after it's started to happen. Or if it really is that important to you, is, let's say you're with a new group of people, you outright from the get-go, you said, this is how you are. This is a really hard boundary. And make people aware because that's your expectation. Similarly,
Right.
it can open the conversation. All right, so you've just shared your, boundary. So, is there a boundary that someone else has that they would like to share? So you are aware of it as well. Otherwise, you're going to blindly, walk over it.
Exactly. And again, that goes back to collaboration. And listen, we're going to run out of time and I don't want to. We talked about the book. It's in front of me and I've got chapter 3, The Tower of Mind in front of me. I'm not entirely positive and I don't want to make a statement, but I think this might be my favorite chapter so far. Let's talk about that because you talk about, am I saying this correctly? Kaizen?
Kaizen. Well, I pronounce it
Kaizen.
Kaizen.
Kaizen. Okay, let's
Okay.
talk about that.
Okay, it's actually a Japanese word,
Right.
made popular by the Toyota way. And really what it means when it's translated is change for good. Okay. So I've reinterpreted it in a slightly different way. On the one hand, let's say in a work context, it's about constant improvement. So even though your organization may have an SOP, a standard operating procedure of how to do X, Y, and Z, it can still be improved, especially if you wrote it 10 years ago. Their technology improvements, as we get smarter, we work out how to do things better. So there's that constant improvement from a work point of view. Now, I mentioned for work, but it could be something that we individually may do out of work. Okay. We might find a better way of doing something. So that constant improvement is one context that I use it. But my other context is lifelong improvement of self. And that's really linked to learn something new every single day. Because there's so much to learn out there that if we are not learning something new every day and trying to keep up or trying to get ahead, we're just going to get left behind.
Very much so. And you say in here, as humans, I'm on page 72. As
Mhm.
humans, we ruminate as a way of reliving the past in our minds again and again, which I'll tell you
Mhm.
is it's annoying. We hyperfocus on it. I catch myself doing it and say, really? You don't have anything better to think about? That's in the rearview mirror. But you say we hyperfocus on negative things, situations, or people from the past to avoid encountering them again. And this habit, as I just said, tends to become intrusive. It's really annoying. So, how do we get around that?
Yeah, there's something else linked to that as well. It's, if we think something, we can bring it into being. So this is actually linked to manifestation, which I didn't
Yep. And
really,
your subconscious. I talk to
yeah.
my subconscious all the time. And that's
So
how I manifest a lot.
I didn't talk about it too much in the book, but given that we manifest what we think, even in our subconscious, it really means that we need to limit how much we think about some of these past negative things.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely. I will stand up and I catch myself doing it because it's like an old, worn out tire track. You're just going to keep going down that same tire track. And I will literally, once I catch myself just for no good reason at all, going over something that happened 100 years ago or a week ago that I've, said, this is not worth my time. But here it is again. I will stand up and have a chat with myself out loud
yeah,
because
yeah,
here's my thinking. If I'm saying it out loud, I'm not having 100 million thoughts cross through my brain. But if I'm saying out loud, I'm focusing on at least one thing, and it helps. And basically, I'm saying, Denise, knock it off. Just stop it. It works.
yeah, that works for you. That's great. Yeah, but to stop thinking about something is very, very hard.
It is.
Um,
You
it,
have to be
it,
aware of it.
it's more than that. It's like say, hey, stop a bad habit. Okay. Um, so you can't really stop a bad habit, just like it's very hard to stop thinking about something that you didn't want to think of, you shouldn't be thinking of. We have to replace it with something else. So just like we have to replace a bad habit with a better new habit, okay, we have to replace those maybe repetitive unwanted thoughts with better, newer thoughts.
Sorry, I'm digging through the book. I didn't realize it. I was supposed to be talking with you. I'm got the book open. You talk about psychometrics a lot in your book, and you
Hmm.
leverage those tools with clients. So, which assessments deliver the biggest aha moments, and how should leaders act on those results?
Oh, wow, that's a really big question. And you said we were
I
running out of
know,
time.
huh? I know.
Um,
Sorry.
um, I'm biased because I use a certain group of assessments, mainly because I'm involved in that company. But I think they are good assessments. So I'm biased for the assessments from Great People Inside. And what I like about their assessments is, okay, so they're looking at a bunch of behaviors which arguably other assessments also have. So because when you put the hundreds of different assessments side by side, a lot of them are based on the same theory, and a lot of them are trying to measure the same things. What is slightly different about the Great People Inside assessments is that they can be customized to suit your organization. So rather than hey, here's the assessment and it's a one size fits all, which a lot of the assessments are, they measure, up to 20 different dimensions, and you basically use it for everything. With the Great People Inside one is when you actually look at it more, if you look at that type of assessment more closely, you might find that, okay, of those 20 things, maybe not all of them are applicable to our organization when we look at our people and we evaluate them against these assessments. And you might find that, hey, out of these 20, only say 10 of them are really predictive of performance, which means that the other 10 aren't. The other 10 don't mean anything to your organization. So why are we even measuring them? So with the Great People Inside, we'd make a shorter assessment that would only measure what really matters to the organization. Now, they have a dimension bank that's got more than 100 dimensions in it. So there's lots to pick and choose from. And so it's quite easy or easier than other assessments to do a good mapping for what your organization really needs.
And where can people find these?
They can find them by going to greatpeopleinside.com. Okay. They can also find them if they go to my website, rickyvanovich.com. They'll find them on my website, and I have a bunch of...
Apparently lost a whole...
Okay. So if you want to find out more about the Great People Inside assessments, you can go to their website, greatpeopleinside.com. That's one option. A second option is to visit my website, rickyvanovich.com, and go to a hidden page, okay, which is rickyvanovich.com/offers. And if you go to that page, it'll magically open up a whole load of free assessments and other free stuff.
Perfect. Rick, thank you so much for spending time with me today. I really appreciate it. And what you just shared, I think, brings us to the close of our conversation. So thank you for sharing your insights from business as unusual and your decades of experience guiding companies through change. But before we sign off, and is there anything else that you wanted to share? Do you have any final words of encouragement for our listeners?
Sure. Thank you for that, Denise. Now, as we do close, I want everybody to leave with a thought. Remember, we are not just participants in this ever-changing world, but your architects shaping the course of your lives, your careers, and the world around you. I encourage you all to embrace change and define it rather than just adapt to it. Be that catalyst in your own business as unusual world. And the transformation starts with you, and I'm eager to hear about your journeys. Denise, I really like to express my gratitude to you for having me on your podcast today. It's been a real fun conversation, and I hope your listeners have enjoyed it as much as I have. And to all listeners listening in, I really appreciate your time and attention. I look forward to hearing from some of you, learning from your experiences, and perhaps sharing some more in-depth future discussions. Thank you again, Denise, and to all listeners for this wonderful exchange.
It's my pleasure. Listen, everybody, thank you for joining us today on your Partner in Success Radio. In today's episode, I sat down with Rick Yvanovich. He's a seasoned entrepreneur, business coach, and author of Business as Unusual: How to Thrive in the New Renaissance. And drawing on his 4 decades in accounting, IT, oil, and gas, Rick revealed how he built a multi-million-dollar consultancy that now supports clients in 80 countries, from Fortune 500 titans to luxury hotel groups. And he showed me and you how to turn market turbulence into fresh opportunity, ignite innovation across global teams, and align personal purpose with lasting business growth. You really need to grab this book. I'm not joking. You need this book. You'll hear why he calls our lightning fast marketplace a new renaissance. And we didn't get a chance to talk about how to spot emerging trends before they hit the mainstream. So, Rick, you're going to have to come back. I told you we were running out of time. Anyway, you are invited to come back and we'll pick up there. So, everybody, thank you. Tune in and let's pick up practical strategies that you can put to work right away, no matter where you are on your entrepreneurial library. And thank you for being with us here today. And I will see you next time. Rick, again, thank you so much.
Get your voice heard. If you would like to launch your own far-reaching podcast, contact Denise Griffitts at yourofficeontheweb.com and go to the podcast tab.